Today we're going to make fennel roasted chicken. And we're going to start off with a whole chicken. We're going to cut that up into pieces and then we're going to marinate it. And we're going to use all these ingredients to help marinate it. So what you'll need is some honey and some hot sauce, your favorite kind. I've got paprika and smoked paprika here, but you don't have to have smoked paprika for this to work. Garlic, onion, lemon, salt. I've got some rosemary here. And then this is the fennel. So let's get started. To start, we're going to slice an onion. We're not going to dice it because we don't want it to lose its shape too much in our when we're roasting it. So I'm going to take the onion and just slice around, take all the peel off. Once we have the skin taken off, we're going to cut the onion in half using that claw technique, and then cutting along the lines using the flat side for safety. We're just going to slice it in about maybe 1/4 inch slices, and then the end piece you can just give a chop. And this is these are called aromatics. Onion, garlic, things like celery, fennel for sure are aromatic flavors that are going to really season our chicken. So we're going to take all of our onions, we're going to throw them in a big bowl, like that. And then we're going to chop our fennel. So these are called the fennel fronds, and you want to trim off any that look tough, because you don't want a lot of these big pieces in there. We're going to cut it up kind of small. Okay, but we're going to keep some of these little fronds, the little feathery looking pieces, because that adds a lot of flavor. Trim this off. And we're just going to slice this part very thin. It can be kind of woody, but it still has a nice flavor. So we're going to use that part, plus our fennel fronds. Give that a rough chop. Remember, this is all going to get slowly cooked down in the oven with our chicken. And then this is the bulb of the fennel. And we're just going to slice that thin, about the same thickness as our onion, maybe slightly thinner. And you can get rid of the piece that has the big root end on it. Okay, so there's all our fennel. That's going to go in the bowl with our onion. And then we're going to add about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic, depending on how garlicky you like things. So our cloves of garlic, really, they don't even need to be peeled. They're just going to get a really good smash. I'll take the peel off now just because I'm doing it. But you don't have to, because they're just going to add flavor. You won't necessarily bite into a big piece of garlic in this, but you can certainly peel it if you choose. And with garlic, cut off any blemishes you might find. Like that, you just want to trim off. Okay, so we'll just keep bashing all these cloves of garlic, and then we'll add them in, and then I'll show you how to cut up the chicken. All right, here's our whole chicken. You can see I put it on a piece of paper towel just to catch any of the liquid that might come out of it after you've taken it out of the plastic wrapping. And one other thing you want to notice here is that most chickens have their gizzards still inside, and they're normally wrapped up. So you look inside one end of your chicken, and this is the neck, the heart, and the liver. And some people hold on to that to make really nice stock. Like if they're saving all their chicken carcasses, you could save all of that. I'm not using it in this dish today, but I probably will save it to make chicken soup. So let's get started cutting up this chicken. So what our plan here is to get the legs off and then take the breasts and the wings off. So we're going to start with the wings because they're the easiest. So we're going to flip over our bird, and this is the back of the bird, okay? And what you do is you pull the wing out, and with a sharp knife, just cut through the top layer and then pull back, and you'll hear it crack a little bit. And you want to use your knife to go right through where the bone, the socket joint is. Okay, so there's one end. So that we have a nice wing. We'll flip this side over. Go right through. Speed is not the focus here, okay? If you're just learning how to cut up a whole chicken, you don't need to rush through it. Take your time, find the joints, and then cut through. If you try to cut through bone, it's going to be really hard. So you need to find where the bones meet, the joints are, okay? So we have our 2 legs, now, or sorry, our 2 wings, and now we're going to cut the legs off. So the legs are 2 parts. We've got the drumstick and the thigh is here. So you can almost see it come down and around here. All right, I think you can see it, yeah. So it sort of comes down here. So what we're gonna do, that's how I do it anyway. There's lots of tutorials on this. So I pull away, I pull it away so the skin is taut, and then cut through the skin. And then you can see there's a joint right here. And as I pull it back, you sort of break that joint. And then you're going to pull your knife down and around through that joint. And that gives you a leg quarter, right? So here's the thigh and here's the leg. And we're going to repeat that on the other side. So I'm going to cut through the skin. Okay, it exposes all of it. There's a big space typically between the leg and the thigh, the breast. So I'm going to trim that all away. And then we're going to cut through, and you're going to cut until you hear that, or you pull until you hear that joint pop. So there's the bone. You cut right through there. And there's our second leg quarter. So now the last thing we need to do is take the chicken breast off. So we're gonna have boneless chicken breast. And the way we do that is you find the spine here, or the rib, I guess this is there's a long bone that runs down here, the breastbone. Okay, so just to the right of it, you're gonna use your knife. And you're gonna slice right down along that long bone. And then you're going to curve your knife. Hopefully your knife is a little sharper than mine. And you're just going to run your knife down along. So what's in here is we're starting to get to the rib cage. Okay, so this is all the ribs of the chicken, and inside is that cavity, okay, where stuffing would go if it was a turkey. So we're going to trim. This knife's much sharper. It's not as flexible. So we're going to trim down along the rib cage. Okay, and there we have one whole chicken breast. And I cut these into 2 pieces because they take a while to cook. So I'm going to cut that in half, and you'll see with chicken that you have a tapered end that's a little flatter, and you have a big fat end like this. So I cut them in half so they cook more evenly. And we're just going to do the other side. And what I like to do with the leftover carcass is put it in the freezer. And once I have 2 or 3 of them in the freezer, I make chicken stock out of it with any leftover veggie scraps that I might have. So chicken stock, or as some people these days call it, bone broth, is the bones of chicken or beef that you throw in with an onion and cover with water. You might even put some celery in there, carrots, and you just bring it up to a boil and then reduce it to a simmer, and you extract all the flavor from the carcass. What you end up getting is all of the connective tissue that you see here turns into gelatin, and so you get a very smooth, rich, textured broth by making your own stock. There's really nothing like it. Okay, so we have our second chicken breast here. Remember, this is the fat end. This is the skinny end. If you're going to make a chicken cutlet, you'd want to make sure you pound this out, because this is going to take longer to cook than this end. And if you look here, you see this yellow fat. That's all saturated fat that we sort of want to get rid of. It doesn't taste so great when it's cooked, so we're going to take that off. But anytime you see any of that little yellow chunky fat, we can take that off. And then we're going to cut that in half. All right, and there's our whole chicken cut up. It's a lot cheaper to do it on your own than to buy a whole chicken cut up. You'll save a few dollars at least, depending on how big the bird is. And then you also end up with this part, which if you put in a freezer bag and stick in the freezer, you can hold on to and make soup out of. All right, so that's our whole chicken cut up. The last thing we're going to do, once we get rid of our chicken carcass, is we're going to cut the chicken leg quarters into a leg and a thigh. And so you can see it articulates. There's a joint there. So what you want to do is stand it on its side. So it's almost you standing on that V. And you're going to cut through. and you're going to look for the joint. You're going to break it, and then you're going to cut right down into the center of that joint. Once you do this more often, you will have a better idea of where that joint is, and you'll be able to cut right through it. But when you're starting, it helps to break through that joint. Okay, so now we have drumsticks, thighs, chicken breasts, and chicken wings. And there's lots of tutorials out there for you if this one doesn't work for you, but this is how I cut up a whole chicken. It's the least complicated way as far as I know. So what I'm going to do now is take all of these and put them in the bowl with all our fennel and onions and garlic, and we're going to start to marinate it. All right, so the first thing we're going to put in our marinade is lemon. We're going to roll the lemon on the counter to release a lot of the juices in there and cut it in half. Pop out any seeds that you might see. If a couple end up in there, it's okay. What I like to do to juice a lemon or any citrus is you take a fork and you put it in the center, and then you just move the fork up and down, and it ends up juicing your lemon really easily. You don't have to get out a whole other tool. These are pretty seedy lemons, so let's see if I can get a lot of them out. And this is not a recipe. This is a no recipe. So, you know, if you don't have lemon juice, you could add orange juice, or you can add red wine vinegar or lime juice. It's fine. It's whatever you have on hand is what you want to use for this. The next thing we're going to add is probably, I would say, about a tablespoon. Let's see. That's about a tablespoon of honey. And to balance out that sweetness, so the honey is balancing out the acid, and then to balance out the sweetness from the honey, we're going to add a little bit of hot sauce. All right, we're going to definitely liberally salt it. And we're going to toss all this together in a minute, but I want to put everything in there before I get my hands all chickeny. So this is the paprika. Get all that in there. And the last thing we're going to add before we put it on a sheet pan and put it in the oven is oil. That'll help crisp everything up. The last thing we're going to pop on there is some black pepper. It smells really good, guys. All right, hold on one. All right, so now I'm going to add a pretty generous pour of extra virgin olive oil. I like to use the extra virgin here because you can really taste it when you eat it later, and I think it's a pretty lovely flavor. And the heat's not getting so high that it will burn in the oven, so we can use the extra virgin for this. I'm going to do a pinch of rosemary, and now we're going to get our hands dirty. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to toss it all together. It smells all citrusy and fennel-y. And what we're going to do now is just let it sit for about 15 minutes, and we're going to pour it all out onto a sheet pan and roast it in the oven. It's pretty delightful. It's one of my favorite weeknight meals. And that's it. We're just going to let that sit for now. All right, our oven is preheated to 375, and now we're going to put all our chicken pieces on our sheet pan. And what I typically do is put the smaller pieces in the middle because they take less time to cook, and then the bigger pieces around the outside. So we'll get all of these on here. Here's our lovely chicken breasts. Make sure you put them skin side up so in the oven the skin has a chance to get nice and crispy. Here's our chicken thighs. And then we're just going to take all of this lovely marinade. We're just going to put it right on top of our chicken. And what you're also going to get from this is a lot of juice in the pan when you're cooking it. And that is going to make a really nice sauce for your chicken, a little pan gravy. So we're going to pop this in a 375 oven until the chicken comes out 165. It shouldn't take very long because we've cut all the pieces up. And here we have our pan roasted chicken with fennel and onions and lemon. Look at all that lovely pan juice that's in there. That's going to go on some mashed potatoes. Super delicious. Hope you guys enjoyed the recipe.